Leo Burnett is one of the global, famous agencies. And at the time I was bringing agencies such as them and asking for an interview, and they were actually seeing me, but they're saying, dear boy, yes, all fine, but go to art school. I picked up Quaker from it, I picked up Phillips. It was a really successful, but the guys, running the big agencies over here were outraged, and there was a whole double-page spreading campaign. How can this young upstart come in? Well, I said, you can't tell me what I can offer clients. I'm not devaluing it. I'm just getting people to sample us and making it simple for them to try. So it all started. I mean, because I had this brazen approach of walking into places with my hands in my pocket, not even a laptop. I might have a little brochure, but I use it as a kind of, a memoir or something. They were very under-resourced as people, and what I gave them was an automatic plug-in and play business like ours that would, again, hold their hand and not let them fall over. And give them immediately best in class in everything.
Welcome back to Success is a System. Today I'm with a great friend, someone I respect massively from a marketing perspective. I've known Paul for 20 years or more. And what I'm trying to do with Success is a System is to speak to people who I believe are the best in their field. Mainly business, but it could be anything. It could be sports, it could be music, it could be any area that people want to achieve success. Paul is that person when it comes to PR, marketing, comms, digital. And so I want to talk to Paul about some of the systems that he believes has made his business successful over the 20 years I've known him and longer. So firstly, Paul, welcome. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you, Mike.
How did you get into PR and comms? Where did it all start?
The true story is that when I was 14, I started thinking about what I wanted to do with my life. And one of the biggest influences of my life back in those days, in 72, was a guy called David Bowie. And I was like obsessed with the guy. I mean, I had hair, I was skinny. I even dyed my hair red at the front, put an earring in there, platform boots. And all he did was, I thought he was an interesting guy, obviously, and I thought he worked in an advertising agency briefly, which he used to talk about in his interviews. So I thought, interesting guy, interesting industry. So I started looking at that, and I think I was very naive. I was good at art, not to the standard I now know you have to be, but at that time I really enjoyed art. So I spoke to my art teacher, and I said about advertising. He said, go with your portfolio around London. So I can't believe how brazen I was. I was ringing Leo Burnett when I was 15.
Who's Leo Burnett?
Well, one of the leading... Leo Burnett is one of the global, famous agencies. And at the time I was ringing agencies such as them and asking for an interview, and they were actually seeing me, but they're saying, dear boy, yes, all fine, but go to art school. And
Mrs. Harold at the time?
I hadn't left school. I was 50. I mean, he gave me time off to go and have the interviews. Wow. So we've discussed, issues I've had in terms of learning, and the last thing I wanted to do was go to university and waste my time there. I knew what I wanted to do. My mum worked in London, and every Tuesday there was a full page in the Evening News saying, Evening News was another evening newspaper then, saying opportunities for juniors. And I said, go for it line by line. And one day there was an agency say, looking for a production assistant to learn all aspects of advertising, agency in Holborn, made the phone call, went to the interview. I jumped to my Fizzy, which is a Yamaha FS1E, when I was 16, rode up to London, Holborn, had my interview with a guy called Bob Payne. Bob Payne's still best mate now.
Okay.
And
but let me take that forward then. So you started at a young age, didn't go to uni, and it's amazing how many people I speak to who haven't gone to university. Now, as a Doctor of Education awarded by Anglia Ruskin for contribution to schools and universities, I also went to a school that was once called a demonised depository for social waste. But what I say is that something like 70 to 80% of all the millionaires and billionaires in the world didn't go to university. But that doesn't mean to say that education isn't valid. In fact, I think if you had the drive, ambition, all those things that a lot of the people I've spoke to have got, and you had education, you'd become unstoppable. The problem is, and we talked a little bit about this when we were getting ready, is that education fails people that can't learn in a very narrow sphere or way of learning. So you've got 20, 30, 40 kids all being taught one way, one system, but they all learn differently. Some of them have ADHD, which I don't, if you don't mind, you recently found out. Now, it was blindingly obvious to everyone else who's known you for years. But that, what I realise is all that means is you can't work in a formatted way that forces you to sit at a desk and be boring or consistent for more than about 20 minutes at a time. So by having that variety, building that variety into your day, into the way you approach things, if you can do that, you can still go on and be truly successful, as you have. But what I understand, so you went and got a job, but loads of people get into a job and stay in a job till they retire. What made you set up on your own?
Well, I knew I had to set up my own. I knew I had to do an apprenticeship in the industry. So I started at 16. By the time I actually got to 21, which would have been the time I'd have graduated and I'd gone to uni, I had 5 years of experience. I was a fully fledged account executive by that stage in a top 20 advertising agency in London, which is what would be
that's a great degree in itself, isn't it?
Well, I was account executive working on a large 5 million then portfolio of clients. I don't know what that 5 million would be worth.
And that's what, 35 years, 40 years?
I was 21, so 40 years ago. Wow. 43 years ago. I'm 60. I keep forgetting how old I am. 64, 65 in May. I'm scared. So yeah, I did 20 years. So from literally working in the production department, I went to numerous agencies. Some were well known, some were really good. But I had to go through that learning process of being an account handler. Yeah. I was inspired by a great guy I used to work with into new business. So by 25, I then decided to go into new business. Then I worked in an agency that had aspirations for going international. I rang up the IPA, spoke to them and said, anyone looking for a London agency? And they said, well, fortunately there is. I went and represented the London agency, got signed up. And by 33, I became the president of that European network with 7 Central European offices.
And what was that called?
Unison.
Unison, okay.
So great guys, they were really, really experienced guys. But now I look back, I was the enthusiastic guy, had the carrot, and I was a new business guy, and I used to knock down doors. So I did that quite successfully for 3 years. I was in trade press more often than most blokes who were captains of industry at the time, but because I had no fear, I put stuff out there, and I did used to piss off people because I'd make statements that they didn't like. For new business, I'd go a route which they'd think, well, how can you do that? I said, well, because I can, and I want to.
But what was it Bill Gates said? If you want people to love you, sell ice cream.
Yeah.
If you want to run a business, you accept you're not going to... But also, one of the principles I teach is conflict leads to clarity. Pissing people off, as you say, if it's done, if you're doing it just for the sake of it, Piers Morgan, I think that's often rude and it's just for attention and something. But if it's done because you truly believe something and you want to get a point across, or you're not going to take, being blunt, bullshit that people are giving you, there's nothing wrong with conflict.
It wasn't anything terrible. It's just the fact that I worked in an agency group of agencies that had so many wide sort of capabilities. I went out there with a new business proposition, which was to international clients, because I had the whole Central European area to cover. I said, if you let us book the media for the first campaign, we will give you the whole production and creativity for free. Yeah. And it was just literally to attract. It was a new group. I wanted to attract some attention, and I got, picked up Quaker from it. I picked up Philips. It was a really successful. But the guys, running the big agencies over here were outraged, and there was a whole double-page spreading campaign. How can this young upstart come in? Well, I said, you can't tell me what I can offer clients. I'm not devaluing it. I'm just getting people to sample us and making it simple for them to try. And it worked. So,
and clearly it worked. I look around the room, and what people, if they're listening, won't be able to see, and even if they're viewing, can't see the whole room, absolutely stoked full of awards. with, and these are big international global awards on advertising.
Yeah.
And, again, part of the reason we met in our industry, which was food and drink and retail at the time, is because you were a leader in PR comms, you're a fully integrated agency now. But, what people may not be aware of is that you have worked for and run campaigns for Coca-Cola, Cadbury, Kraft. Tell me some of the other brands.
We're
global brands.
We're 28 years old now, and when I started the business, I left. My last role was working in a company that had acquired the agency I worked in, and I wasn't the owner of that. It was a publicly quoted agency, and this agency had grown by acquisition. And what they'd done, they'd kept all the MDs, as it were, of the companies they bought, which I felt at the time was a bit, it's a bit strange because every single one of them still thought they were the MD.
Right.
So you're sitting around a table with them and no one made a decision. And, this is a long time ago now, so probably they're all retired, but, most of them wouldn't have pissed on each other if they were on fire. And this young guy came in and I had all these great ideas, patting me on the head, but did nothing. So I said, look, I'm coming up to 36 now. I've done 20 years apprenticeship. I've gone from working in a small agency in Holborn to being a quite high profile, in my own way. And I said, I've had enough. So I just took the leap of faith. We did a deal. It's funny actually. I did a deal with the board where I listed clients I wouldn't touch, but ones I would. And they said, no, don't worry. I handed my notice in, went to the Christmas party for the last time, dancing hi-ho silver lining with the chairman in my arms, both pissed. And we left really good. A month later, I find out they're flinging mud at me, about my name to the clients. Yeah. And I thought, I've been... But
that was probably jealousy because, we talk about brands like Procter & Gamble, Unilever, Cadbury, Kraft, Coca-Cola, massive global brands. What was it that you were doing? If we're talking about systems, why were they working with you and not one of these massive big ad agencies?
I think we've touched on this other discussions where people buy people. So it all started, because I had this brazen approach of walking into places with my hands in my pocket, not even a laptop. I might have a little brochure, but I use it as a kind of, a memoir or something. But the whole thing was based on my confidence, and my confidence was always based on the ability that we could, as an agency, because good people, they say, if you're good, get people around you that are much better. And what I do isn't what the rest of the team do. They are all really good in their particular field. So if you could do PR, be really good at it. If you're going to do comms, be really, really good at it. And if you're going to hire people, just try and get the best people.
So which bit of it are you really good at?
I was always a new business guy. I went through 20 years. I knew how to do the job.
But I'm trying to get to systems. What specific? Let me give you where I think it's coming from. Here is Steve Jobs was once asked, what exactly do you do? Because you're not a programmer. You're not this. You're not that. You don't actually have any of the skills that Microsoft need. And he said, I may not be the best player of any of the instruments necessary for the orchestra, but I conduct that orchestra to create world-class output. And I think part of you was that conducting, it was building the relationships. But put it this way, if you were talking back to your 20-year-old self now, what would you say was your best skill then? You'd be saying you're really good at, what would the answer be?
I think what I'm good at is kind of, interacting with people. I think what I do is I talk to people that I've known them 20 years if I've only met them in 5 minutes.
Right.
I had a video call last night. I don't know the guy very well, but he was a similar age guy, and we just got on as people. And I think that's what I did. I used to walk in, make people feel comfortable. I'd never plan anything. I've never ever planned, so I wouldn't know what I was going to say till I walked in the room. I'll walk in the room, look at the people.
Which made it more natural when you probably did speak to them,
smell the air, smell the air, and if they were, look like a real serious bunch, I wouldn't try and be, make them laugh or do something comedic. I'd try and, sort of find a way in, and then, but what I was always good at is really making people feel at ease and letting them know how confident I was about, I'd say things that no one used to say because I was confident. I always say we're like a restaurant. I've got a great kitchen that knocks out fantastic food. The front of house people are the suits that, from the maitre d' down to the people, that they work with, and they are all good. And, I was the manager of the restaurant, and people loved eating in my restaurant. So that was a bit like the way it was. But I'd, go in there, and I wouldn't know what I was going to say, but I would promise them. I'd even say things like, I think we would be good for your career, especially if you're a young marketeer, where, people were scared to talk to the press, just in case they said the wrong thing. We'd hold their hand, take them through the maze. I mean, when I went to Procter & Gamble, they were a bit nervous about talking to the trade press, the young ones. So you don't have to worry about that. We'll hold your hand and lead you through it. And in the end, you could stop them. And, we had that business for a long time. But I think that's what it is. It's me just being confident about what I can do.
And we both know Greg well. We did. Funnily enough, we were both mates with him without realising we both knew him separately. And then we realised that all three of us knew each other. And one of the things that Greg said is about his selling. And of course, you're a salesman at heart, really. New business, you said. He said, people talk about selling as the gift of the gab. It's not the gift of the gab, it's the gift of the ears. It's about listening. It's about adapting. It's about listening to what their needs are and selling them a solution and delivering on that solution. I think you do that. And the point that I've always noticed about you, I mean, look, we have a great bloody laugh, don't we? We've always had fun in everything we've done all around the world. And, you are exceptionally different. In ads, we think of the pinstripe suit, the Armani, all of this, and talking with a certain accent, being in a certain way. And yet, you come in and just run roughshod through that. Now, what people might not realise is you've got the Bentley, you've got the soft top sports cars, you've got the Harley Davidson, you've got all of that if you want it, but that isn't who you are. No. That's just like toys along the way, if you like. And I talked 10 years ago, and you and I had a conversation about it, because I tried to make it incognito and covered up, because I didn't want you to be offended. But I said, in comes this guy who kind of will get drunk at lunchtime or whatever.
No, you said Buster Blood Vessel type character.
I did. I probably should have hidden it more. But the chapter was called "Don't Confuse Activity with Accomplishment." Don't confuse activity with accomplishment. And I don't know if you remember, but it was probably 2009. I was speaking at the Atlantis Hotel in Paradise Island, the Bahamas, and it's a 5-day conference. So I'm out there to speak. You're out there, and we catch up. I didn't realise you were going to be going. And I say, "Oh, you're coming to the conference session?" You say, "Oh no, fuck that! I'm not going to a conference session. I'm here for 2 things." And I said, "What is that?" And you said, I won't mention their names unless you're happy to, but Company A and Company B, they were both Fortune 100 global companies. And it's like, so this wasn't a little goal, this was you going out there. I don't need to attend the conferences, because when the speeches are going on, I can't talk to them. I'm going to meet them by the pool, by the beach, by the bar, at the dinner, at the lunch, and you were obsessively focused in a positive sense.
I didn't know that though. I didn't see myself. But
that's what you said to me. I'm here just for 2 things. I'm going to win this client. I'm going to win that client. I don't need to attend the conferences for that. And when we came back, and it's why I put it in the book, that everyone was there, studiously sitting in the conferences, listening. I'm glad there were some there because I was speaking, and it would have been empty if they were all as focused as you necessarily. Although some of them might have been there to learn the content, but you came back, and we're going back, 15 years, and you, on those couple of days, picked up 200,000 plus clients. And that was 15 years ago. That would have been,
They were, well, one of them, I think there was definitely one, and a lot of, there was actually many more other contacts that came off there. But I think that was really, again, being naive and, have this kind, people, thank you for your, kind comments, but I went into it thinking I could do with a bit of a trip. I'd love to go and lie in the sun. And the guys here were saying, but come on, it's going to cost money. You got to justify that, even though they didn't have to say that. I mean, I knew, and it was pure. I mean, some of these things you make your own luck. If I hadn't have gone there, what had happened wouldn't have happened. The first morning, I remember you and I met up, and I said, I'm not going to have breakfast with you. I want to go and sit down with people I don't know. And one of the companies that I wanted to go after, and also it was actually Kellogg, so it's a big brand. I went to a table where there was a table of 10, 9 seats occupied, one seat available. I had no idea who was on the table. I just said, guys, can I come and join you for breakfast? Yeah, sit down. So, guy, who are you? Kellogg's. Yeah. And the guy sitting next to me is now the sales director, and we got chatting, and he invited me to have a beer with them that evening. So I didn't actually have to sell. Yeah. We became very friendly, and he said, you must come up to Manchester and see me. And I did.
I haven't seen you in action for years. I don't think you ever really sold. You listened, you built relationships. And one of the things I talk about a lot is people do business with people they like, know, and trust. Well, if you don't spend any time with people, you can't really know them. If they don't know you, how can they like you? And if they don't know or like you, it's hard to trust you. Now, sometimes that's borrowed trust from credibility from other people. So if Kellogg's were to say to me, do you know Paul? Do you know his agency? Are they good? We can do that. But you went in there, you said, was it luck? Well, you went there with the intent to bring those two clients.
But I didn't,
Is it, people, my younger brother talks a lot about the universe will provide, and I think, oh, bloody hell. But it does, again and again and again for him. Now, was it destiny? That seat was there, you brought them home. Was it the team saying to you, oh, you're just going for a piss up in the Bahamas, and you say, no, I'm going to get two clients. But the point is, loads of people justify that and come back without winning, without the baby, if you like. You got that, you landed that, you've done it again and again and again and built a massive business.
But my system was, I've always been a lone hunter. So I used to say to the guys, I'm going to do what I do, which is make contacts, go and see people. So, we've had Coca-Cola for over 20 years. And it was a very different thing then, Mike. You could pick up the phone, ring Coca-Cola a switchboard, or if you had a name, just say, can I speak to you? And they put you through. And I used to get appointments, I guess, quite easy, 'cause that's what I did. I knew how, I didn't paint myself into a corner when it made a phone call. My objective was always, just see me. If you don't like me, and if I don't say anything, it'd be a waste of half an hour, and that's all it was. But I knew that the chances are I could turn it around. There was a lovely lady there called Lorna Phelan, who was the trade marketeer. And I just went in there and I said, look, all your customer, trade ads look like they've been done by so many different people. And she said, well, that's because they have been. I said, I think I can help you a lot by really focusing on the message. Back in those days, the most creative message you got was the best has just got better, or stock up now and increase your profits. That was they're the kind of things. And because I came from a different agency background where planning, strategic thinking was all big, and the team that I had around me were good at that, I used to make them promises that they couldn't refuse. I used to say, I'm going to come in and wallpaper your walls with great ideas, and we bloody well did. So when I went,
that's the point. You weren't making false promises.
Never.
You may have not known at the time how you were going to deliver.
If anything, I was brazen and made quite big promises, but I always over-delivered. People, it's funny, because today
don't make a promise you can't deliver.
Well, we got a guy in the office today, James Tipple, who used to be a young marketeer at GlaxoSmithKline 20 years ago, and he's gone on to be the MD of Virgin Money and global brand director. And he would tell you, they used to work with a big multinational, I won't say who they are, but they used to work with a big agency network, and the way they work is very different to the way I work. They would take a couple of months, do all the planning and come back with the one idea. This is the campaign. Where I used to think, there problems like a circle, you walk around it, and it all depends on your audience. Someone might not be very brave, but the company might be a bit braver than him. So what I used to say is, there's many different, you can have, sort of low, medium, high in terms of impact, but we'll never embarrass you. We will not produce something that's going to embarrass you, but, and that's why we wallpaper the walls.
But you talk about, just pick up the phone and speak to Coca-Cola. The biggest spender on marketing in the world, the biggest soft drink brand in the world, and probably more so back then because there was less choice. But so there must have been hundreds, thousands of people that would drink Coca-Cola. Yeah. So it wasn't just making that call. That is a big step. That is a system. A lot of people I talked in a recent podcast, they're saying, oh no, they won't answer my call. Why should they answer my? So they talk themselves out before they even try. The first thing you do that is a winning system is just pick up the bloody phone. Yeah. But then why do you think, what was it about, what did you, and I'm trying to drill down just to help people who are out there trying to grow business now. did you say something different in those first few seconds? Because in that first call, you can get put through or cut off. Why did you get put through?
Well, no, I don't. I mean, you have to ask them. I think what I did, I never used to think much about what I was going to say till I heard the voice. If it was a friendly voice, I would go into a different mode. If it was someone really formal, I thought, I've got my work cut out here.
Adapt.
And what I then do is not give them a position to say no. I naturally knew how to answer any objection, and what I would do is, hopefully they would listen, and by the time I finished, they didn't actually have any questions.
But that's probably why you're good mates with Greg and were before I got to know Greg and became mates and so on, is that one of Greg's big principles, one of the things he said in the podcast I did with him recently was, you just got to be yourself. Just be yourself, and people can relate to that because they see whether I like it or dislike it, that person's being real. So you, with your, in effect, the system is almost a lack of a system. It's almost don't over-plan, because if you over-plan, you're going to be so scripted, it's not going to be natural.
But things then work out. I mentioned Lorna. Lorna then left for many, many years. I hadn't heard from her. And one day she rang me up and said, "Oh, Paul, John, if you remember me." And I go, "Of course I bloody do. I mean, I could never forget you." She's I'm at Weetabix now. And she's handling all the customer marketing there. So I said to Rod, the MD, who you know well, come on, let's go and see them. And we went there and basically picked up the business. So look, the way I've always worked is, as a lone guy, I didn't like taking people with me because I wanted to do what I do. And but I've gone into, I used to talk to a trade press. What's going on? Have you heard anyone looking? Someone once said, I heard Budweiser's looking. So instead of kind of doing a long-winded letter, I've got the lady's number, who lives in Peterborough, funny enough. And funny enough, she rang me only a few weeks ago to say hello. And I just said, look, I've heard a rumour, can I throw my hat in the ring? I actually got in the car the next day, went up to Peterborough, and it was coming up to when Budweiser were doing the World Cup, we're talking about 20 years ago. And I put some, again, it's talk about communication based around that. And we created a Corco. It's fantastic. They loved it, and we were with them for a long time. What I tend to do is Diageo. We were Diageo's agency for 8 years. Timing's everything sometimes. So what you say and the time you say it can be perfect, because can't say what it was, but there was some conflict between the agency they had and the person they had in-house, resulting in both going quickly. So they were left without a guy doing the work and the agency. So I walked in one day and they said, "Can you handle this?" And I literally walked in there and walked out literally with the whole Diageo customer marketing program.
So let me put that into perspective. You talk about Diageo as if they're just an ordinary company. No, this is one of the biggest companies in the world.
Well, they are. They were at the time the biggest alcohol manufacturers.
And in every category of alcohol, they've got a major brand, whether it's Smirnoff or Gordon's.
They're mainly spirits and RTDs, ready to drink products. Whereas we've had on beer, we've worked with Carlsberg, we've worked with Budweiser, we've worked with Peroni Asahi.
Massive brands, and I want to come back to it, because you say I'm a lone hunter, and what that perhaps doesn't communicate is the importance you attach to people, because you might be that when it's coming to the selling, but you've always looked for who's going to be my best creative, who's going to be my best brand marketer, who's going to be my best digital person. So what you always do behind that selling is make sure you've got the best possible team that can deliver that. And one of the things I talk a lot about at the moment, mentoring, is winning teams only have the best players.
Well, the thing, what I did, and I did really, and it was well thought through, because of the background I came through. Sometimes when you go for clients, it can take bloody months by the time you get the chat, you get the brief, you win the business. I didn't have that time when I started the agency. I had to go in there and get work. So I went around the back door, and that's why what they used to call trade, they don't call it trade anymore, they call it customer marketing and retailer engagement programs and all that stuff. So I would go through the back door. The people giving me the work would typically come from sales, and they needed that help. They were very under-resourced as people, and what I gave them was an automatic plug-in and play business like ours that would, again, hold their hand and not let them fall over. So, and give them immediately best in class in everything. So I'll go after the easy wins, like doing the trade work. Then I'll go after the PR. Then I'll be talking to them about, what about your shopper point of sale, experiential. And at the time, there wasn't digital, Mike. And what we've had to do, we've grown with it. We didn't pioneer it, but if you're not in it, then you're not in the game. So everything we do and touch now has got, as an adjunct to the traditional brief, has got to be assets, create assets for great social media.
And I remember you mentioned digital. I remember at the time, because I was chairing the business, you'd asked me to come in because you were going to transition. You're transitioning some of the way the agency was run, but you're also getting into digital. Now at the time, a lot of the big agencies were bloody web schmeb. It's a short-term thing. We want the big bus boards. We want the advertising on telly. We want radio. We want print. Bloody digital. That's going to take away half of the spend that we manage. But you accepted that a lot of the business that you had was about ads and stuff at the time, but also knew that you had to go into digital. Now, what is it you think that puts you ahead of the curve, or that makes you ignore the masses and do the opposite, if you like?
I'm not going to take credit for any of that, because we weren't ahead of the curve, because the industry we worked in were quite slow. I mean, I'm not talking about the actual suppliers as such, but the media that we worked within was a little bit slow, because what you got to remember, what I did, I unashamedly, well, so many sides to us now, but stick to convenience, for example. I wanted to, I've grown to love, I mean, one of the pleasures of my life is working with retailers. And, only a few years ago, a retailer didn't have a computer in the store. They probably have to go home and use it. So we've had to wait a long time. But bloody hell, have they embraced it now? I mean, the retailers alone have become social media
And again,
experts.
you're self-effacing this, saying you won't take credit for it.
Can't.
But you knew that it was a skill that you and your existing team then didn't have.
Yeah,
you knew you would have to have it.
Yeah.
And so even though there was quite a big cost attached to it, and it was something you didn't know, it wasn't a skill you were comfortable with, but I remember you going out and employing people that were good at that.
Yeah.
Because you knew it was something you needed.
Well, at the time, I mean, you're talking about, was it 10 years ago?
That was probably 2011, 12.
We had an online and offline planner. I mean, two different people. And I always remember when we first employed the guy, I mean, my God, the language they used to talk. I used to talk to me for 20 minutes. I said, what did he say?
Yeah, I understood every word individually, but collectively it was nonsense.
So, anyone who knows me will laugh, because, I am self-effacing. I mean, I call myself, and I'm not really, but I'm a bit of an analog guy living in a digital world now. But, I didn't actually have a computer on my desk until I was 40. They weren't in my school. So I can do a bit on it now, but I leave that to the experts.
But interestingly, I think, Disney was big on observe the masses and do the opposite, because the masses are leading lives of quiet desperation. The masses are average. And what I then heard from a boss, John Irish, when I was at Spar, was average. No one wants to be fucking average, because average is the bottom of the top of the bottom, the cream of the crap. Now, I've got a business partner at the moment who is my business partner on property and development and so on. He's never sent an email. Literally. And he doesn't do that, because he says, if I spent all my day doing emails, I'd never get out and meet people. If I didn't meet people, I'd never build relationships. If I didn't build relationships, I wouldn't have a business. Other people can do the emails. And I think perhaps what I see, looking outside in from you and your business and having chaired it for a year or two as well, is that almost they say that pigs don't realise pigs stink, but also people who are amazing sometimes don't realise what light they shine. And you have won these massive global brands, and they've won them.
They are global companies, but when I started this business, I didn't want to go global anymore. I knew there was enough going on in my own backyard. And where you're right, I did want to run. I used to say I don't want to run with the rest of the dogs. If they were running that way, I'd run that way.
Right.
So, and I realised what they did. They left a lot of untouched pickings that I called trade. So that's allowed me to go through the back door, because they all wanted the big budgets. Of course I did, but I knew at that point, the funny thing was, when I won Procter & Gamble, I'd just taken on a great lady called Selena Taylor, who is our client at Coca-Cola.
I've met.
And the first thing I got was a chance to pitch for Unilever. And Tony Smith, I don't know if you remember him, what a great guy, sales director and everything. but we weren't dealing with him then. We had to go through another team, and they loved what we were saying, but they couldn't take the risk of a startup working. There was a risk element. Yeah. The way I put it was an advantage because no one was going to work harder on their business. They decided that for the reasons known to them, they didn't want to work with us. But the minute that decision was made, I opened the door at P&G. And they saw it very differently. And, that for me was, Coca-Cola, the P&Gs, the General Mills, they're all kind of pinnacles for me because, I come from a background where, I used to be, as a young suit, I'd be scared, to talk to people like that. Yeah. But when you meet, I know the people, the people that run these kind of businesses. When you meet them, they're just people like you and I.
Yeah. And that underdog thing is a system in and of itself. I remember Hertz Car Hire.
Hertz, yeah.
Now they were a medium, small player, and they, how can we cope with Avis? How can we compete with all these other big car companies? So they literally put on below their brand, it was their strapline for a long time, we try harder.
Yeah.
We try harder. And it was just saying, we're not number one. We know we're not number one, but because we try harder. And I think, that's a system. But often people don't realise the systems they're using, and with systems success is a system. I'm trying to sort of pull some of those systems out. And one of the things you mentioned just then was about pitching. What's been your approach to pitch? And if you were giving advice to someone starting in advertising or PR or comms now at 16, 20 years old, or you were going back and giving it to yourself all those years ago, what would you say about a pitch, creating a pitch? What's the essence of a great pitch for you?
I think, pitch is all about a great brief. So, the client has got to know why it is they're pitching it out.
Back to asking questions and listening.
And what they want to achieve from it. And I think then on, it's about the agency interrogating the brief and boiling it down to just your key objectives. At the end of the day, everything boils down to very simple objectives. Yeah. People want people to know about what they're doing. They might want to sell more. It all depends on what that brief is.
So I want to come back to that because that was a golden nugget to me. A great pitch comes from a great brief.
Yeah.
So how did you get that information? Because often they'll say to you, we're advertising this product.
Well, we didn't always get great briefs. So
what did you do if you didn't have a great brief?
So what we used to say, I used to say, if you hadn't written the brief yet, talk to us now and we will help you create a great brief. Yeah. Because in the early days, you're talking to quite young, inexperienced people who, James here today was a young trade marketeer. And he went on to be, global brand director for Virgin. So, at that time he was learning, and what we do is help get their mindset right in terms of, I used to say, don't give me pages and pages and pages. Give me a very succinct one-pager. Who are you? What do you do? And what, you're trying to achieve, and what do you want from that? Yeah. What's the ideal response?
So again, coming back to that then, so a great pitch comes from a great brief. You either get a great brief or you ask the questions to give you the information you need to have a clear, succinct brief. Yeah. And then deliver against the brief.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that sounds so simple, but so many people won't push and push and push to get the brief.
No, I mean, and we do.
And then they fail.
Because, why invest your money and time, because time is money. It takes a lot of work to put together a pitch. Hundreds of hours ultimately, because you've got to go out and do your digging. You've got to, you can't just sit at your desk. You've got to go out and dig, find out what people think, particularly in the grocery world. Very, very easy for me to go out and find out what people really think. And particularly now, because, fast forward, and where we are now, 28 years old, very established. Awards great, but it's nice to be, get that recognition. But what more can you do in your field? So it struck me as again, I'm an ideas guy. I love setting up businesses, and the thing is, some fail spectacularly, and I've had some howlers, real howlers, which we can go into if you want. But what I've done now is come up with an idea where how can I add value to this business and show the competition. Because we always tend to be one step ahead, a clean pair of heels. So I think the agency model is great with a lot of the work we do, but how do you add more value? Well, C-Talk is a platform that we've now got a share in, and I'm a director of. And that's an amplification of a message that we can get out there to thousands of convenience retailers. And another guy I met runs a great field sales force, a guy called Paul Marsh, Inspire Field Marketing. And I can now add 500-600 people to what we're offering. So we can talk to clients and say, not only can we handle your comms, your PR, we can then amplify it directly to the audience, including using our traditional methods. We've got some great trade partners in the media. We can work with people like C-Talk who can do it live on screen, and they can give, we can go to a client and say, you've got a 10-minute sales conference, or you can talk for 10 minutes to your retailers. So now we can get product literally delivered straight to store as well. So if people want finding it difficult to get distribution,
you'll help them.
We got a solution for there now.
And you talked in that about having had howlers in the past and everything. And one of the things to try and get across to young entrepreneurs, I'm speaking to a load next week again at Alia Future Business Centre, is don't be afraid of failure. In fact, my book, Failure Breeds Success. Yeah. And I say to people, you show me a successful person, I'll show you a person who's had failure. They are not a failure, but it is always a part of the journey. It's one of the ingredients in the necessary ingredients towards an outstanding world-class meal, if you like. So it's part of the journey. It's an ingredient of success. It's not the opposite. It's not the opposite.
The thing was, I guess it's what you realise, you learn, all the way down the line is. This business has been a success. Why? It ain't just about me. Honestly, the team I got here, you know them. They are really outstanding, right? So you got that confidence. And what I thought was that you go out there and get another team to run another business. You're going to repeat that success, and it can't fail. Yeah. Well, my learning, is I was overconfident. I started a digital screen business going to windows of convenience stores. Great, it was add footfall. It was all about the brand. So what you're doing for breakfast, brands are coming. What you're doing for lunch, brands are come up. What you're doing for dinner, special occasion every day. Someone's got a birthday or an anniversary every day. You get it on there. In the summer, it was barbecue. Get your barbecue. Telling your eater, get your barbecue kit because we could go on screen for that. But what I underestimated is the funding of that. We raised some money, and what we should have done is raise enough money to keep it going for a year without money coming in. What we did was we were overconfident. We could sign up loads of living retailers and get screens in, and Bob's your uncle, but it didn't work.
If you were talking to someone right now who was going through the failure and had some of the challenges you've had in different businesses, we ride the wave and it gets better and better. You've got a great business, great lifestyle, and so on. But if someone's going through a failure now, what would be your advice?
Well, I think knowing when to say stop, and not you can see it's going to go one way. Well, the interesting bit was, it didn't work for us. The business then went on to be owned by somebody else, and they've stayed with it. They had the financial resource to weather it out. And I don't know how it's doing now. I've kind of been involved looking at it. But, it's about getting on, pick yourself up, dust yourself. I mean, it's the old adage, don't dwell on it too much, although I do dwell. I'm always looking over my shoulder thinking, what if? But I've had to learn not to. Sometimes you be in a position to do something that makes absolute sense, like, the screen business, like data is now. A few years ago, I was looking at granular data, from EPOS companies for the convenience channel. And I was given, 6 months head start. But, when I promise something, I know I can achieve it. What you're working with is other salesmen who think they can do what they're telling you is absolute fact with their fingers crossed. And when I bought I bought some great clients to the water, and we couldn't make them drink because it was built. The promises were built on sand.
Exactly.
It didn't work. So and you can only use so many favours up with people, because they came because they trusted me,
But coming back, if we were to try and say, right, Paul Mercieca, built an amazing ad agency, connected with people, sold to companies that your size of agency probably shouldn't have been able to sell to. What would be 3 systems that you would say you would use for success? If you just had a grandchild, a child, whatever, if you had to say, right, son, right daughter, right, granddaughter, these 3 things in life are what I would say.
Look, you've got to have a good front man. You've got to have a good front man, someone who's gonna be picking up the phone, going out there, making the contacts. You have a good team behind you. If you said, what mistake did I make in the early days? I was a salesman. I didn't study finance. The one thing I wish I'd done really early on in my business was bring a financial director in.
Right.
That's something that came in. We used to use external services, and we've got internal people now, and they make a massive contribution to your business.
Have a great front man. Internal
finance. Get the best people. Whatever disciplines you're looking at, you got to have the really, really good people who can. If I'm going to make those promises, and it wasn't like I used to say, I don't think I made bombs go off everywhere, but we come back, he's made all these promises. We always delivered.
Yeah.
But I guess what we really had to do is be ahead of the game all the time, because when I started in the business, our area of trade, customer marketing, never went to awards ceremonies. They might have their own little ones, but they never joined in with the big ones. When you got the big advertising agency boards, sales promotion, direct marketing.
But what's the lesson or system there about staying ahead of the game? How it's an easy thing to say. How do you think you did it, or what?
I think
where's it come from?
Just keep being good and look at what your client's doing. And try, it might be doing 3 things. Look at what 4th thing you could do for them, and get the confidence of the client. Say, look, we're looking at this 4th thing, and we show you something, not just can we do it. We've been thinking about it, and we've got some thoughts on it. Where you might fall flat in your face, but the guy's going to look, or the person's going to look at you and say, 4 points for trying. So there's still you're not going to lose anything. If anything, it might not happen then, but you say, what? Last year you came to me with that thought, let's do it.
And they could see that you were looking to over-deliver or go the extra mile, or not just go with what they needed, but say, we can deliver that, but we can also, have you considered this, I guess? Yeah,
because the things we're doing now as an agency is so different to and the clients we're working with. What we did, we took, with the people that came on board, and Jem, for example, she was only 24, she joined here.
Yeah, she's still here.
She's done 21 years. And the few years she had before coming to us, she got involved with grassroots sports PR. So we picked up a client called Campina, Friesen Campina, Yazoo Milkshake. And she gave it a different, so we started off talking about trade, but suddenly she's talking about how can we get this to the kids in education, using grassroots sports, for example. So, it comes to grassroots, rugby, football, cricket, whatever. That's when they took the product to the kids. And, that spawned a whole area. So from that, we've gone into working with Pentland now, which is a big sports company, and Mitre, and we've got Club Wembley. So it's taken us whole areas. Becco was we handled the Becco account when Becco were just starting out. Didn't really have much of a business, and we worked with them where they had a tiny little budget, and we were with them 15 odd years. And it came to a point where we couldn't work on it anymore, not because they didn't want to work with us, but the business went truly international, and they wanted a truly international agency.
And you wanted to stay focused on
no, we didn't. We've only just stopped working with we were Becco's PR agency for their, doing all their consumer PR up until just 2 or 3 years ago. But it came to the point where the pressure from other big global agencies, they went from being a 30 million pound business to being 300-400 million, and the leading refrigeration brand in the UK.
And you were their agent.
And we were right up to that point, But the people behind the company then were people like you and I. You could go in there, talk freely, and it became very professional. My lot stayed very professional with them. So I see that as a great achievement. Losing business sometimes it's sad to see a client go, but if it's done for the right reasons, you understand.
Well, But you've got to know that I talk about it in terms of mentoring a lot of the time. So I sort of say David Beckham, when he was a Sunday League footballer, he had a Sunday League coach, a Sunday League manager, and so on. And they were great. They took him to where they needed to. But he wouldn't dream of having that same coach, manager, mentor now that he's Premiership or global player. The reality is that each mentor, teacher, manager can take us to some level, and then you have more respect for them if they say go teach more people to get to that stage and jump and go on. And I knew that when I was running businesses, I'm okay to tens of millions, but beyond that, I like the speedboat. I like that fast, that agility, that difference. I never want to be a super tanker. It'll move too slow for me. No. It's just like big and cumbersome.
I said,
but knowing your strength and working with people.
I said very clearly, I want to be the best, not the biggest. And I think we've fulfilled a lot of that. And sort of going forward now, I'm coming to an age where I've still got a level of excitement in me to do lots of things. So going forward, yes, I'm going to be still around, but I'd be looking to do other things. I've got my 2 daughters in the business, which we haven't touched on as well. They started here. They did college, and I said, if you're going to come into this business, go and work for someone else first and see if you like it. Don't use my business to come walking in, and that could be disruptive.
Frankie and Sophie, they both went off and did that.
And they're both senior people in the team now. So the team now are great. I mean, they're running this business very, very well. I've got other interests now as well. I'm a brand owner. I've got a range of bamboo paper products, i.e. loo paper, kitchen towel, and I'm going back to the shop floor soon. I'm going door knocking. But
here we are then, and I'm conscious of time. We could speak all day as we often do. But so we need to come to a wrap. But where we're at is, a lot of people think I'm going to retire at 50. I'm going to retire. I mean, I tried to retire at 46 and then got bored shitless and come back and all this stuff. And I now know I'll never retire. But 64, you said you worry about 65 or that. But you've got energy for stuff. You're starting new brands. You're working with new things. So, is there any age at which you think you'll stop?
I said like you. I didn't think I'd be in this game at 50. When I was 50, we were making great profit. We had a business. Well, we still have got a business. That if you look at our clients, you say if you put an ad in the paper, say, and there was a teaser, and you put our clients on there, guess which agency it comes from? The last one they'd be thinking of is us. Right. They'd be saying one of the big the big agency groups. So I'm really proud of that. But I've got other things I want to do now, and in June 2024, I would have been working 50 years. All right, so I've been working 48 years now. So I think by then I want to know that I'll be standing down from here fairly soon, actually, and it gives a chance for Frankie to have a go, going on the board and everything. Soph's about to go and have a baby, so she's going to be really busy doing that. So, the agency's going to carry on, very successfully. I'll be still coming in, and I'll always be, what do I do? You asked earlier. I really think I can pass a fantastic ball so for one of them to nut, kick, whatever they do in the back of the net. And quite often, the pass is so good that to miss it,
So I shamelessly stole the life mission vision statement of Stephen Covey, which, and I say stole it, I couldn't find a better one, and I thought it was a good one to live by, which was to live, to love, to learn, to leave a legacy. And so live, love and learn constantly as a principle is a good thing, but legacy becomes more important as we get older. So what would be the legacy that you would want people to say about Paul Mercieca in 30, 40, 50 years' time? If someone was talking about this guy they used to know.
I think I've always said it. I think I talked about the business we started. We were working what I used to describe as Cinderella discipline. It was a trade area. It never went to the board. It wasn't sexy. It was kind of overlooked. It was given to people that were very junior because people didn't want to dirty their hands with it. And I think what we did, the legacy was that we took the Cinderella discipline and we enabled her to go to the ball and shine with the rest of the. So I think we upped the games considerably because we looked at what we did as even if it was a small budget. we put all the kind of disciplines that we had internally as if it had been a big budget and made the work look so good it got recognition.
And so if we had to encapsulate that, because I've never heard that, the Cinderella discipline.
Well,
so is that about sort of not being afraid to work at the mucky end, because it can take you to the ball if you repackage it?
Absolutely, so, and so much so I'm now a brown owner. I mean, talk about the mucky end. You can't get more of a mucky end really with toilet roll. But I'm not just doing any toilet roll. I'm doing bamboo dry paper, so
friendly, sustainable.
It's all sustainability, and I realise that what I'm talking, the kind of retailers out there, I'm talking at the moment to the 10% of the whole estate. There's nearly 50,000 retailers. If I get 10% of the 10% of the best stores right now, it's a bit like Free From. When you used to go into Sainsbury's, Free From was an aisle this wide. It's now a whole aisle, if not two, right? This is what's going on. And I did all the right things to trial it first. So I don't make mistakes. I try not to make mistakes. If I'm going to get involved with something, I will trial it and trial it and try it. So I'll get the products out in stores that I think can sell it properly. And once that's proved, I know I'm onto a winner. Then you've got a problem, because how do you then launch a brand with not a lot of money? You've got to outsmart people, and that's where you have to use your wit and your character and some say charisma to try and win people over. But
well,
some say.
I think that's a great legacy to leave, the Cinderella principle. Don't be afraid to work at the mucky end, because if you repackage it can take you to the ball. I think that's a good ending point. So. Thanks again, Paul. We could speak forever. We're going to go for some lunch in a minute. And, for me, if it comes to marketing, if it comes to communicating, there is no substitute for meeting people. I love the fact that Paul talked about, if you want a great pitch, you need a great brief. And if you haven't got a great brief, you need to speak to people to get a good brief. People do business with people they like, know, and trust. You can't get to like or know someone unless you spend time with them. So go out, find them, look to where they go, be in those places, whether that's at awards, whether that's at dinners or industry events. Paul's a master of that. So thanks very much, Paul. If you've enjoyed today, like, subscribe, share. We look forward to seeing you again. Thanks very much.